Anvil, which we know we already went no-go at one point today for the detached anvil rule. So they're really kind of convoluted threats, situations where it's very unique to this field.
Right, it seems pretty complex. So how does that percent go number get determined?
Well, that's the key question, isn't it? So really what we do is we first diagnose the weather patterns. So we look at the situation, kind of like today, we knew we would have some light westerly flow. Normally when we have westerly flow, that's bad news for us in the afternoon, which, of course, that's when we're launching today, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. roughly. So that's why we started with a high probability of violation. We generally, know that we're going to be above 50% because from a climatological perspective, we're likely to have thunderstorms during that time frame. And then we delve closer and we look at the finite differences today versus a general day in weather. So today we had much higher moisture than we normally do. So initially it seemed like our POV was up to 70%, but now we know locally we have a sea breeze boundary pushing inland that's helping us a little bit. So now our POV is dropped up a bit.
Awesome. Thank you so much, and excited to see this go's satellite launch. Thank you, Melody. Back to you, Daryl.
All right, thank you very much, Philip and Melody. She's an LO, as we mentioned. The LO for the mission today is Brian Sizik, and he's been earning his paycheck today, helping SpaceX navigate the launch window. Of course, we slipped 10 minutes so that we can get a little bit better weather in the launch window. Now, GOES-U will warn us about severe weather here on Earth, but also space weather, like geomagnetic storms. And those can have implications for not only satellites and astronauts in space, but also communications, aviation, and electric power here on Earth. To improve solar weather forecasting, there's a brand new instrument called the Compact Coronagraph, or CCOR, and it's flying for the first time on GOES-U satellite. And this is a model of one that seems like Alec brought like nearly every instrument from the satellite here. We really appreciate that. How does this thing work?
Oh yeah, we got a lot to show off. This is a real-life size, real-life model, and it also has a door. So the front end is here, and it's pointing at the sun. So it image the sun. This looks like a telescope. It is a telescope. The sun's really far away. So to get a high-resolution look at the sun, the information goes to the telescope. We have a little disc there in the middle that blocks out the light from the sun itself because we are trying to see the sun's atmosphere.
How does it improve solar weather forecasting?
That's right. So by understanding the corona, the sun's atmosphere, we're able to better see and understand the bursts that come from the sun. A lot of plasma, radiation coming towards Earth. And so we're seeing some of that now. Yeah, see that. And so some of these explosions, when they come towards Earth, they could scramble communications, they could cause blackout. They also trigger the beautiful northern lights.
And in this image that we're seeing right here, like, it really starts lighting up. I mean, all of this energy coming at us. You mentioned the northern lights. We just had a pretty big solar event that lit up auroras across the country in areas that we've never imagined. We're going to see northern lights.
Yeah, and around the world. My friend saw the northern lights in downtown London, outside of her apartment. I had a chance to catch them in Shenandoah National Park, outside D.C., and that was a really unique event. Seeing it coast to coast and down south like that was incredible.
It's amazing. People here in Florida took pictures that captured it, but I didn't see it. A lot of folks didn't actually see it in the sky. So I think by the time we got down this far south, well, this is a tremendous instrument, only on GOES-U, right?
That's right. And I mentioned earlier, it's a historic first for NOAA. This is the first time we've had an operational chronograph. Our Space Weather Prediction Center in Boulder, Colorado, needs this information to issue space weather warnings. Like I mentioned earlier, space weather can affect communications, it can affect GPS, and it can impact even safe operations of satellites in space and even astronaut safety.
And the sun is the biggest contributor to solar radiation, or solar radiation, all space radiation here on Earth and low Earth orbit. But NASA managers, well, they want to plan the Artemis 2 mission. If you haven't heard about it, going back to the moon, sending astronauts back to explore areas of the moon. They will need tools to forecast radiation that is happening there, especially as it impacts crew's health. So here's now more on how those U will play a role in our Artemis moon.
When NASA launches astronauts Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen on the Artemis 2 mission to the moon, NASA's Orion spacecraft will protect them from many hazards they could encounter. One of those is space radiation. When astronauts travel in space, they can't see or even feel radiation. However, NASA scientists are studying the effects radiation plays on the human body and developing ways to monitor and protect against this silent hazard. Space radiation comes primarily from the sun, which accelerates particles through space with flares and coronal mass ejections. But space radiation also comes from high-energy galactic cosmic rays, or GCRs, which are particles coming from outside our solar system that are formed by events like collapsing stars. The largest potential threat is when astronauts are outside the spacecraft performing an extravehicular activity, or EVA, in space or on the surface of the moon. We currently monitor changes to space radiation levels from both solar storms and GCRs thanks to NOAA's GOES satellites. EVAs can be rescheduled, and NASA has areas inside Orion where astronauts can take shelter during space weather storms. That's been your Artemis Moon Landing.
And GOES also has its eyes on Artemis. Check this out. While measuring water vapor at night, the GOES East satellite captured this imagery from the Artemis 1 launch in November of 2022. Orion and the Space Launch System rocket broke through the clouds and left a hole in its wake. You see the hole open up there? It streaked through the atmosphere, taking off there. And of course, the launch of Artemis 2, which is currently scheduled in 2025, will also be captured. That'll be captured by GOES U after it becomes the primary satellite for GOES East. At the top of the show, we started loading the 3 first stage boosters. Next is the second stage. So let's check back in with Megan and Nick.
That's right, and in about 17 seconds, we expect SpaceX to begin loading RP-1, or rocket-grade kerosene, into the rocket's second stage. And there you go, that's the call out there. So now we are loading both RP-1 and liquid oxygen into the Falcon Heavy rocket.
That is correct. We've got RP-1 and liquid oxygen going into the first stage 3 boosters, and we just started RP-1 in the second stage, and we see RP-1's about 50% on the 3 boosters, and liquid oxygen is roughly about 30% on the first stage. So getting ready to start that. Next thing we'll do is liquid oxygen on the second stage. So things progressing well as we head towards a 526 liftoff.
And so to get RP-1 into the second stage, RP-1 has to first flow through the strong back, right? And that's that structure on the side of the rocket. Right now it's behind the rocket from this view that you're seeing, but this is the structure that provides propellants and electricity to the rocket until just before launch. And at T-minus 22 minutes, you're going to hear a call out to chill down that strong back, and that's to get it ready to load the really, really cold liquid oxygen into the second stage.
Yeah, that minus 341 densified blocks that we want to start flowing up through what we call the TE when we transport and wreck the vehicle, and then call it the strong back once we're on the vehicle. We want to get those lines chilled down so we can get that LOX in the second stage. So that's a very important step to make sure that we don't break anything and keep going with loading today.
Yeah, because if we don't chill down the strong back in preparation, we could do thermal shock to the system, right?
That's correct. Yeah, we don't want to do that. And so we load these propellants. We want to keep moving, but things are looking good, and the team is proceeding forward.
All right. And so the GOES-U satellite is bound for geostationary orbit. NASA's Philip Hargrove has the complicated trajectory needed to get it there.
I'm joined by LSP flight design analyst Mark Nimitz. Thanks for being here, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
Let's talk a bit about the GOES-U mission trajectory. So the G in GOES stands for geostationary. Can you explain what that means?
A geostationary orbit is a circular orbit around the equator, about 22,000, just over 22,000 miles in altitude above the Earth. What's unique about that number is that altitude takes 24 hours to complete one revolution around the Earth. What else happens in 24 hours, one revolution? The Earth rotates on its axis in 24 hours, or one day. So if you pair those two up, put the satellite above a particular location over the Earth. As the Earth rotates 1 revolution per day, and the satellite moves at that same rate, the satellite will remain over that location over the Earth, stationary, geostationary. In terms of what we're going to see on launch day, we don't have the performance to take it all the way to the mission orbit. Instead, we're going to go to what we call a geostationary transfer orbit, or GTO. And what that basically means is we're going to take it the majority of the way there, and what's most important for them is to have the sun in a particular location during that ascent sequence. So as they perform their design and how those all maneuvers will map out, they determine what the launch time would be to put the sun in the proper location for that ascent sequence.
So for this mission, we know that there's a long coast after the second burn of the upper stage. Can you explain why it's designed that way?
Sure. Right. This is a 3-burn mission. You can see the first 2 burns mapped out here. Those 2 burns occur in about 28 minutes. After that, then we do have this long coast period, as you mentioned. It's about a 4-hour coast until we get to the location of that 3rd burn. So we're going to get up here, we're going to do this burn, and we're going to raise that low side of the orbit from about 100 miles to about 10,000 miles in altitude. At the same time, you can see here the bend in the trajectory. We're also going to lower the inclination, that angle with respect to the equator, from 27 degrees down to 4 degrees.
Thanks so much for explaining the trajectory to us. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
Since 1975, GOES satellites have provided continuous imagery and data on atmospheric conditions and solar activity, resulting in more accurate and timely weather forecasts. Here's more about the legacy of NOAA's weather satellites.
It all began back in October 1975 with the launch of NOAA's GOES-1 satellite.
We've come a long way in weather forecasting since the early balloon launching days, thanks mainly to weather satellites.
As groundbreaking as it was, it had limited capabilities and only viewed Earth about 10% of the time. By 1980, a new series of GOES satellites went into orbit. These satellites had the capability to obtain vertical profiles of temperature and moisture throughout the various layers of the atmosphere. In 1994, GOES-I was launched, and with it came significant improvements in the resolution, quantity, and continuity of GOES imagery and data, thanks to a new 3-axis method of stabilization. Once it reached orbit, it was renamed GOES-8 and gave forecasters more accurate information to pinpoint locations of storms, wildfires, and other hazards. By the mid-2000s, GOES-N, GOES-O, and GOES-P further improved the imager and sounder resolution to better pinpoint the locations of intense storms. This satellite series also had improved optics, better batteries, and more power, allowing for more continuous imaging.
3, 2, 1.
Then in 2016, the current generation of geostationary satellites was launched, the GOES-R series. With this series came new advancements that included state-of-the-art instruments like the Geostationary Lightning Mapper and the Advanced Baseline Imager, or ABI. For nearly 50 years, the GOES satellites have provided a unique view of Earth. As the program advanced, so did the technology, allowing it to become the most sophisticated weather observing, environmental monitoring, and space weather monitoring satellite system that helps promote and protect the nation's security, environment, economy, and quality of life.
With the help of GOES data, NOAA weather forecasters predict above normal hurricane activity in the Atlantic Basin this year, with 17 to 25 total named storms, including 4 to 7 major hurricanes with winds of 111 miles per hour or higher. GOES satellites help predict the severity and the path of these devastating storms, and here's how.
So the polar orbiting satellites complement the geostationary. Since the geostationary, like 24,000 miles up, while they get great pictures, it's really hard to measure what is the state of the atmosphere from that distance. So the polar orbiting are basically flying little over 500 miles up. And when you're at that altitude, you can sense what's in the atmosphere to a lot higher resolution.
Two things people always want to know about hurricanes are how strong is it and where's it going to hit. And microwave sounders can certainly help with both of those. The ability to see through clouds becomes really important. If you've ever seen a picture of a hurricane from space, mostly what you're seeing is clouds. And you can get a better weather forecast, a better prediction of how strong the hurricane is and where it's going to hit, which direction it's going to go, if you could see through those clouds and see the structure of the atmosphere and even the ocean conditions underneath that. And so microwave sensors allow you to do that kind of thing.
You'd like that as precise as you can so that only the people who are really going to be affected have to do something. The improved sensors that we've been flying allow a better understanding of the core of that hurricane and allow the forecasters to better predict precisely where that hurricane is going to hit. And when they do that, then you can narrow and shrink that cone of uncertainty and give a better prediction.
We hope to continue to improve the ability to do track forecasting. That's gotten so much better over the past couple of decades. Our 5-day forecast is about as accurate as our 2-day forecast was only about 20 years ago.
And increasingly, people are listening to the forecasts that they get from meteorologists. They have increased confidence. They see the improvement in forecasts as it relates to hurricanes over the last couple of decades. And when a hurricane watch or hurricane warning goes into effect, people take notice and they take action. And that's really encouraging to see.
Data from weather satellites is one way NOAA tracks severe weather, but as they have other tools, they use them. And it's not a tool, but these are guests. That was kind of a weird read there. Joining us now is Nick Underwood. He is the agency's hurricane hunter. Not a tool, a hunter. Great to have you here. What is a hurricane hunter? I mean, it sounds pretty cool.
So Hurricane Hunters, we operate 3 of NOAA's aircraft, 2 WP-3D Orions and 1 Gulfstream Ford. And we use these aircraft to fly into and around hurricanes to collect what we call in-situ data. So actually sampling the atmosphere and the ocean in and around hurricanes so that the forecasters at the National Hurricane Center can have a clearer picture of how the storm is developing and how it's moving.
So what is inside a hurricane that we need to know that we can't get from other entities?
It's that in-situ data. It's the pressures, the temperatures, the humidities, the wind speed, the wind direction, the ocean sea surface temperature. All of this data we're able to collect with our aircraft as well as some of the instruments that we have on board. And all of that is vital for the forecasters.
All right, you've got some amazing video that you shared with us flying in a hurricane. We want to play that now, and you kind of talk to us about what it's like to fly inside a hurricane with 150 mile per hour winds.
So this video is from our WP-3D Orion. That's actually flying through Hurricane Florence in 2018. And on the P3, it's kind of like being on a wooden roller coaster that's inside of an automatic car. So a lot of vibration, a lot of getting bounced around, wind and rain slapping against the window.
There you are.
It can certainly be a bumpy ride, yes. Our Gulfstream 4 flies up above, around, and in front of the storm to sample the high altitude atmosphere, usually at 45,000 feet. And all of this data feeds into those forecasts that you see on TV of the spaghetti plots of all the different ways the storm can go. And the better data we can collect up in the air, the more accurate those forecasts are.
Right there, are you catching some air right there? Looks like a bottom drop down.
Yes, absolutely. You can get lightning a lot in these storms. You can certainly get some hefty bumps, a lot of turbulence, but it's exciting work and it's important work.
And we saw the G4 here today at the shuttle landing strip.
That's right. A lot of people got to check it out. You have one more tool that you use, and that is a drone. I didn't even realize it. Yeah, we have a drone that's going to come flying in. Watch how this thing flies right into the set. Thank you, John. Appreciate that.
There we go. Perfect.
I didn't realize you guys had tools like this. What do you do with this?
So this is newer technology. We've been launching these out of our PTO Ryan the last couple of years, and so these are able to get down to altitudes that we can't safely get to in our aircraft. When we're flying through a hurricane, we won't fly below 5,000 feet, but these can get down to as low as 30 feet off the ocean surface into what we call the boundary layer. That's where the ocean and the atmosphere are really interacting, where all of that energy is really flowing up into the storm. And so this can get us high-resolution data at really low altitudes that we really can't get any other way.
How do they hold up? I mean, these are the most violent storms on Earth, and how does this guy do?
So typically these we'll drop these in the eye where it's calmer. They can work their way into the eye wall, and when they do that, they tend to just follow the wind. So they're not trying to fight against the storm, they're just going with it.
I was about to say, I mean, that's amazing that they can hang in there for that long to get back data. You're a former, well, you're still a meteorologist. Do you recall using data like this, and how would you work it into a forecast?
Oh, anytime there's a landfall hurricane coming towards the U.S., we have the hurricane hunters up 24/7. We're tracking every observation, every pass. They're seeing the real-time changes, right? There's no other way to get it.
Absolutely.
So what's the craziest hurricane hunting story you can tell us?
2 years ago, into Hurricane Ian, as it was working its way towards the coast of Florida, we were flying through at the point when it briefly intensified to Category 5. We were in the eye wall for what was 10 minutes, made it into the eye, were able to mark the center, launch a drone into the eye of the storm, work our way back out. That flight was the bumpiest I've been on in the 8 years that I've been doing this.
What about the lightning? Can you see it while you're
Lots of lightning. I think there were over like 1,000 lightning strikes in the eye wall over the course of a couple of hours there. It was a night mission, so you could really see it flashing. It was very impressive.
Lightning flashing every second, being blown all around in the plane, and how did you feel?
It was certainly one of the more tense missions that we've been on, but all of our crews are highly trained. Everyone on that aircraft is focused on doing the mission, doing it well, making sure that we're gathering the data safely and that we're getting it effectively.
Nick Underwood, Hurricane Hunter with NOAA. It was great having you here. Thanks for sharing your stories. Not as cool as a bounty hunter, but Hurricane Hunter, I mean, what's bigger than a hurricane, right? That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Well, back to talking weather satellites. GOES-U is the last of a generation that began with GOES-R. The next generation of NOAA's weather satellites will be GeoXO, or Geostationary Extended Observation. Here's more.
Like GOES-R, GeoXO will continue NOAA's 5 decades of critical Earth-observing data. However, GeoXO will have new technology on board. One of the new instruments will be an infrared sounder, which will allow weather forecasters to see the atmosphere in extremely fine detail.
It really looks at very fine slices of the atmosphere across a wide area, so it builds up sort of a 3D view of what the atmosphere looks like. And forecasters can use that information to be very precise about their forecast, where a storm is going to be, how severe a storm is going to be. They can even do predictions of what the precipitation levels are going to be.
The sounder will also help detect quickly changing wind speeds and direction, which will assist in everything from hurricane prediction to aviation forecasts.
A big part of the National Weather Service's mission is to forecast for aviation, for safety, and also looking at that fuel economy, looking at detecting the direction of the wind. So that capability is just going to be absolutely amazing for aviation and earlier detection, a quicker detection of tropical systems when it comes to rapid intensification.
There will be 2 other new instruments on GeoXO as well. One will be an air quality instrument that will monitor and track harmful air pollutants, including wildfire smoke and volcanic gases. It will provide continuous observations and measurements of atmosphere composition, which will help improve air quality forecasts and alerts across the United States. Another instrument will measure ocean color, which helps detect and track threats to our lakes and ocean, such as harmful algal blooms and oil spills. Perhaps most critically, NOAA's GeoXO will also meet new needs for the data user community, including forecasters, researchers, and others who depend on receiving crucial environmental information across the Western Hemisphere.
These users are looking for advanced capabilities, and they've told us what they want to see in this next generation, which is going to start observing in the 2030s but continue into the 2050s. And with the changes on our planet and with the society's increased reliance on environmental information, it's really important to be able to serve this wider variety of needs.
GOES use 7 instruments will gather data that can help forecasters in many different ways. For more on that, let's go back now to NASA's Philip Hargrove.
Thank you, Daryl. I'm joined here by Irene Parker, the Deputy Associate Administrator for Systems for NOAA's Satellite and Information Service. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for saying all those words in a correct order and everything.
It's a lot of words. We'll get into it. So, yeah, you're a leader in NOAA. Can you tell us what it feels like to be this close to liftoff?
I'll be honest, it is extremely exciting. This is my second GOES launch, but my third launch ever, and the excitement doesn't stop. I'm so looking forward to Falcon Heavy and feeling the rumble. I'm just so looking forward to that.
Unique question. Can you tell us what makes the GOES satellite unique relative to the other satellites in the GOES-R series?
Oh, definitely. So GOES-R series is mostly focused on weather and sun aspects, but this GOES-U has the compact chronograph, which is an amazing instrument capability that was built by the Naval Research Lab. And what it basically does is it's going to look at the sun and it's going to be able to see coronal mass ejection. And a scientist basically explained to me what that was in like really simple terms. It's like, think of it as the sun burping up a whole lot of plasma, a lot of gas, and it's coming straight at you. And what this is going to do, this instrument, the C4, is it's going to basically be able to see that and detect that. And as it comes closer to the Earth, we'll be able to determine through the Space Weather Prediction Center at NOAA if there's going to be a geomagnetic storm. And if there's a geomagnetic storm, are we going to be able to make sure that our power grid is okay, our astronauts are okay, all those wonderful things. And this satellite is the first satellite in our GOES-R series, which happens to be the last one for the GOES-R series, to have this capability, and I'm like super excited about that. But what's amazing is this is just opening the door for us to do more extended observations in the future GEO series or GeoXO. And in that series, we're going to go and actually do things in atmospheric composition, we're going to do things in color, and really push the boundaries in environmental intelligence. This is just the beginning of those GEOs that happens to have Sigmar, but our next generation of GeoXO is going to have some amazing instruments coming. But the other thing I don't want to forget that those GEOs is still doing is weather prediction, right? It is the bread and butter for hurricane forecast, for lightning, for fire weather, all of those things this satellite is capable of doing. So it's just going to be amazing to see this fourth bird launch.
Thank you so much. Awesome stuff today and awesome stuff today. Thank you so much, Irene. Back to you, Danny.
Both very much. T-minus 15 minutes and counting. When you get your local weather forecast, chances are data from those satellites help create it. And no one knows that better than meteorologist Ginger Z.
Hi there, Ginger Z here at the Good Morning America studios in the Weather Center. We've got a whole team of meteorologists, and I know that atmospheric scientists all over the country and the world are excited for those people. I know we are. Of course, that high-res everything, we're going to look at that lightning data. We're so excited for the aerosol information. It's just going to help forecast, and of course, we cover all of the biggest disasters, the wildfires, all the way to hurricanes. GOES-U is going to be wonderful. I've been talking to the space weather folks, and that coronagraph, having a dedicated peek at the sun every single day, GOES-U is going to be big, and we can't wait for this launch. So go NOAA, go NASA, and go GOES-U.
All right, whenever there's a big launch, we have thousands of people joining us. Real quick about the Ginger Z thing. She talked about aerosols. Aerosols are detected in GOES-U. It's going to be really big in aerosols.
Oh, that's right. Atmospheric composition is GeoXO.
Great. Looking forward to that. Whenever there's a big launch, we have thousands of people visiting the space station to feel and see the rocket firsthand, including a very special group that we're going to show you right now. A special group. About 80 middle school students. How are they doing? Big old there. They're here as part of the Students to Launch initiative, and they've put a lot of it. This is in partnership with NASA. These middle school students have traveled from all over the country to see today's launch, including as far north as New York and Maine, as far West is Nebraska and North Dakota, and south to Texas. Students in launch educates and inspires students across the U.S. to understand the challenges and objectives of spaceflight missions, which can sometimes lead to careers in aerospace and astronautics. And that has to be one of the most enthusiastic groups I've ever seen at launch.
No, they were at my hotel this morning.
Oh, they were?
Very excited. Yeah, breakfast was a blast.
And so are you excited?
Oh yeah, we're getting close. I can't believe it.
That's minus 13 minutes, just under 13 minutes and counting. There you see the rocket there. We've got a little bit of time to take a few more social questions. So let's pop one of those up now. You're doing a great job, Alex, answering all of those. The question is, coming from Space Down, why do you in the GOES use it?
Oh, on the ground, is letters. So we have the GOES series so once it reaches geostationary orbit, it'll be named GOES-19.
Just part of the nomenclature. How you name it on the ground and what happens to it when it goes into space. And we have a few more questions to get answered here as we look and watch the Falcon Heavy on the pad there, getting ready to go for launch pad 39A. Yep. It's that box that's condensing the warm air in the atmosphere. All right, so we have Sonoro asks, how long will this spacecraft be in operation?
Okay, so the operational life is we expect performance along with plan for your storage. So we could have 15 years of use, but really we expect to be a little bit more than that because fuel usage goes up.
It was fascinating. I heard in the press conference yesterday, they said that additional performance comes from the fact that that Falcon Heavy right there has a lot of performance in it for this satellite, so it can stretch it out another 5 years, as you mentioned.
That's right. It'll save us. It can save us a lot of life, and yeah, we will still have our GOES-R series satellites well into the 2030s.
All right, keep those questions coming. Use the hashtag #AskNASA. We'll have time for one more question. We'll pop that up as we count down to minus 11 minutes and counting. Why Falcon Heavy and not Falcon 9?
Oh man, this is a big satellite. We went to a big orbit. So let's get up to geostationary 22,236 miles above the Earth. A big ride. So
Yeah, and I heard somebody from the Launch Services program during yesterday's press conference say that Falcon 9 is right there at the limit of the weight of the GOES satellite. So that Falcon Heavy gives it the additional performance it needs to go up. And so, with just a few more minutes left, your thoughts, Alan, as you get down, ready to count the final minutes before you start.
oh man, I love it. I can't wait to see it. This represents such a legacy to the program, and we're all excited to see this come together for the launch tonight.
All right, Alec and I are headed outside to watch the launch, and so we'll send it out to Megan and Nick for the remainder of the countdown and liftoff, and we'll see you again after the first burn of the second stage. Take it away.
Yeah, here we are at under 10 minutes from launch. Mick
this afternoon, but working with Charlie Meyer, the SpaceX launch director, and Dr. Denton Gibson, the NASA launch manager, they moved our window 10 minutes, and they were able to find that sweet spot in the weather today to get things done. And we're hearing that RP1 loading is complete on one of the side boosters, and things are still progressing to completion of loading the Falcon Heavy.
In total, we are going to be loading 2.8 million pounds of propellant into the Falcon Heavy rocket. You see on launch pad 39 right here. T-minus 5 minutes and 10 seconds to liftoff.
Falcon Heavy tanks are pressurizing for strong back retract.
There we hear the tanks being pressurized for retract, that strong back or transport erector as we use to transport out. The strong back will begin retracting here shortly, and what you will see at the top of the vehicle is those arms that are around the just below the payload fairing will open up, and once those open
Strong
up,
lower has started.
the strong back will then tip back slightly a few degrees, getting ready for launch this morning. And then as liftoff occurs, the strong back will fall back a little more to get out of the way as the Falcon Heavy leaves Launch Complex 39A.
Next up, NASA launch manager's go, no go poll, the final check to make sure the NASA team is ready for a launch that's expected in 5 seconds.
NLM, it's the LD on the NLM net with a final status check.
LD, everything's looking good on our end.
Copy that, thank you.
Thumbs up from NASA, again, confirming that weather, right, was the big watch item, and that is not a constraint to launch right now.
Yep, the team has looked at all the data. Things continue to progress very well. Weather looks really good
LD,
out there.
NY
And
locked on countdown 1.
Dr. Gibson says things are good.
NASA is go for launch.
There we hear the final go for launch from Dr. Denton Gibson on the countdown net, and LOX load on one of the side boosters.
Complete.
There we hear the second call for LOX load complete on the 2 side boosters. LOX load is finishing up in the center core of the first stage booster, and then finishing up as we get down close to T0, the LOX load on second stage. So things progressing very well, Megan.
I do want to mention that Dr. Denton Gibson, this is his first launch as launch manager.
Yes, very happy to have him there. He has been doing very well as he stepped into the NOM position from his mission management position, and very happy to have him on console today as our launch manager for the GOES-U mission.
Stage 1, LOX load complete.
And there we hear the call out for stage 1. All 3 boosters now have RP1 and locks on board, so we are just waiting for the remaining locks to fill into the second stage locks tank, and Falcon Heavy will be tanked and ready for launch.
And we expect them to finish fueling the second stage with liquid oxygen in about 20 seconds. With this
Stage
call out,
2, LOX load complete.
the Falcon Heavy rocket is completely filled with 2.8 million pounds of propellant.
Team has done very well to get to this point. We are so happy of everything's going, and as you can see on the screen right there, weather outside at Launch Complex 39 looks very good. We're about 1 minute and 50 seconds from launch, and the team's progressing down to get the flight computer ready to take over the launch vehicle. As you see there, Megan, the liquid oxygen being vented out, the plume from the humidity here in Florida. We get to see that looks like it breathes, and we just heard the call out for ground gas closeouts, which is finalizing and venting the ground lines that fill the pressure vessels in the Falcon Heavy, so that they're closing off all the ground connections, turning everything over to internal, getting the Falcon Heavy ready for liftoff.
And in a few seconds, we will arm the flight termination system, and Falcon will be in startup.
Falcon Heavy is in startup.
And that means the Falcon Heavy's flight computer is now in control and will guide the rocket through the last seconds before liftoff.
SpaceX launch director, go for launch.
All systems are go to send NOAA's GOES-U satellite into space to keep a watchful eye over the Western Hemisphere, helping scientists and meteorologists to issue timely warnings and forecasts.
T-minus 30 seconds.
This will be NASA's Launch Services Program's 16th mission for NOAA.
A great partnership over the years we've had. Looking forward to this launch.
15 seconds.
And here we go. 10,
T-minus 10.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Go, you.
Liftoff of GOES-U, NOAA's newest weather satellite, to monitor the Earth and Sun in high definition.
Hear that all pressures. Engines look nominal. Things looking good as you see the Falcon Heavy soaring towards the heavens. All 27 engines powerfully lifting GOES-U on its trajectory and ascent into space.
A beautiful shot as we
Power
track
and telemetry nominal.
the rocket from the ground here. The rocket is now powering down for max Q. Max Q is the moment of maximum dynamic pressure on the rocket. Max Q expected at 1 minute 7 seconds. The vehicle is now supersonic,
Falcon Heavy is supersonic.
traveling faster than the speed of sound.
Max Q.
There we heard the call for max Q, maximum dynamic pressure on the Falcon Heavy. Vehicle still performs very well. All data looks nominal.
A great shot from on board the rocket, looking down on the Earth that it is leaving. And all 27 Merlin engines providing 5.1 million pounds of thrust. Coming up at T plus 2 minutes and 28 seconds, the side boosters are going to shut off while the center core will continue on. Wow, what a shot there of, again, all 27 Merlin engines firing off 5.1 million pounds of thrust.
The side booster cutoff will be referred to as BECO. We'll hear that call out. And then when the center core shuts off later in flight, we'll hear that called as main engine cutoff, or MECO. Side boosters are all boosters are performing nominally. Everything's looking good with the 27 Merlin engines.
Side booster separation confirmed.
There we see BECO and side booster.
MVAC chill.
Side booster separation. The MVAC is being chilled down, getting ready for ignition. Once the center core.
NY boost back startup.
And there we heard the call out for boost back startup.
A lot of things happening here. So again, we have the two boosters that are going to be returning to the Cape here, landing at landing zones 1 and 2. These two boosters have 3 burns, so we're seeing a boost back burn
All
now.
vehicles are following nominal trajectories.
Essentially, these boosters have flipped back and are returning on a path to the Cape here. There will be 2 more burns, a re-entry burn and then a landing burn. And these are going to provide quite a show for folks that are here on the Space Coast, because you're going to hear those sonic booms, Mick.
Yeah, absolutely. We are looking forward to those sonic booms as the side boosters land at landing zone 1 and 2. We're about 26 seconds away from main engine cutoff and the center core separating. Once the center core separates, we will then have MVAC, which is the Merlin vacuum engine for space, start up and get ready for what we call SES-1. Number 1. Today we have 3 burns for this mission to get GOES-U's on its way, and this will be the first of those 3 burns.
PY boost back shutdown.
There we hear the 2 side boosters have boost back shutdown.
MECO.
And now we're going to watch live footage there. There you go of MECO. Again, the core booster separating from the second stage, and the MVAC engine on that second stage lighting up. You see that on the right side of your screen.
We're about 4 seconds from fairing deployment.
Fairing again is the two
All vehicles continue
halves.
to follow nominal trajectories. Fairing separation confirmed.
And there we have confirmation the fairing has deployed. The fairings are brand new fairings for the GOES-U mission, and they will fall back to Earth and be recovered by the recovery ship Doug. But SpaceX will look to reuse those fairings on a future flight, along with the side boosters. As we see there, they're coming back to Earth to land on landing zone 1 and 2. So things are progressing very well here. We are about 1 minute and 23 seconds from what we call the entry burn, where the plus Y and NY side boosters will fire up their engines to start slowing down the vehicle as it gets ready for landing.
Yeah, a lot to watch. Again, the left side of your screen, we are tracking the boosters that are coming back to the Cape here. On the right side of your screen, that is the MVAC engine on the second stage that continues to burn as it makes its way into the correct orbit to drop off GOES-U later today.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
There we hear the autonomous flight termination system was saved as it returns back to Earth, making sure the vehicle is in a proper configuration for landing.
The second stage is currently taking GOES-U across the Atlantic towards southern Africa. And this is the first time, actually, a GOES satellite is launching on a Falcon Heavy. Only the second time NASA's Launch Services Program is using a Falcon Heavy.
Yeah, we launched our first Falcon Heavy with SpaceX back in October of 23 with the Psyche mission. And the side boosters actually that we used on the Psyche mission will be used for our future mission, Europa Clipper, this October. So brand new hardware today for GOES-U, and everything looks like it's performing very well. All the telemetry, everything looks nominal for the flight so far today.
Yeah, those who typically watch our launch broadcasts.
Entry burn startup.
There we heard the call out for entry burn startup. The vehicles are slowing. You can imagine this as a brake on your car where it starts slowing the boosters back down very quickly as they
NY entry burn shutdown.
And there we hear the shutdown as the boosters have slowed down. Next thing we will see is the landing burn.
NY FTS is saved.
At landing zone 1 and 2.
Beautiful
All
imagery
vehicles
again.
continue to follow nominal trajectories.
From the ground as we track those boosters make their way back to the Cape. We saw some birds fly. into the camera's view as
Hey,
well.
Everybody wants to see the landing
Exactly.
of the side boosters. As we said earlier, Megan, the landing will be exciting for a lot of people to see. Getting 2 side boosters coming back to landing zone 1 and 2, we will get those sonic booms. I know that you here in the MDC, we will get some.
EY transonic.
We will
Stage
get
2 FTS is saved.
We will get some loud shaking right here in the Mission Director Center. I know a lot of people right here in Brevard will be excited when they hear the sonic booms.
EY landing burn.
Landing burns just
Stage
started
2
up.
terminal guidance.
Wow, look at that. As it guides its way back down. Woo! Just heard the 2 sonic booms here in the room.
EY landing light deploy.
Our monitors
that.
shaking
That
as we
looks
watch
amazing.
these 2
that
boosters
is just
land.
awesome to see the 2 side boosters choreograph their way down to landing zone 1 and 2.
EY landing confirmed.
We have successful landing of the 2 side boosters. Everybody looks great on the landing zone 1 and 2 as MVAC continues its mission with this first burn. And there we heard the call out for SECO, which is SECO 1, second stage engine cutoff for this first burn. And things look very
Nominal
good. The
orbit
trajectory
insertion.
looks, we hear the call out there that nominal orbit insertion. Everything looks great on the second stage performance for this first burn, Megan.
Yeah, and what you're looking at now, everyone on your screen, is the trajectory for the second stage of the Falcon Heavy with GOES U. So again, it's making its way across the Atlantic towards southern Africa. This was the first of 3 burns for the second stage. The second stage will now coast for about 18 minutes before reigniting for its second burn. And if you look at the bottom of your screen there, we have a progress bar full of our milestones that we're covering during this live launch broadcast. And SES-2, that is that second burn we are talking about that will happen in, again, about 18 minutes from now. So, Mick, as you said, so far, so good. Really exciting launch.
Very exciting launch, and we got through that weather, and GOES U's on its way.
Yeah, very dramatic and appropriate weather.
Absolutely.
As we and the launch team navigated that to see us lift off from the Space Coast at 5:26 p.m. Eastern Time. Again, we'll be with you for some of the milestones that you see on the bottom of your screen. But for now, let's turn it back to the host desk. Daryl and Alec, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. If you're just joining us, welcome live to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where we just saw GOES U launch from right here at the Kennedy Space Center from Launch Complex 39A. I'm with Alec Krautman, who is from NOAA. I am with NASA, and this was a heck of a launch. We watched it out there together. It was interesting. I mean, that rumble and that roar. What did you think?
Oh, man, what a view. How did we get this weather window? It was outstanding. It was beautiful out there.
It was fascinating. You made the point to show me, like, look behind you. Here's these massive clouds that have accumulated behind us, far enough off to the west. But then as we looked to the east, it was totally clear. Saw the thing go up the whole way.
Yeah, it's rocking and rolling in Orlando, but we were all good here.
I tell you, you got to love Florida. Appreciate them holding off those storms long enough to get this thing going. Well, now the satellite is surviving the rigors of riding a rocket into space now, but we've got a long way to go, Alec. There's a lot more to do. We've got another short burn and then a long coast phase before we have separation. And then a NOAA team will start commissioning the satellite. So as we jump ahead in the timeline, what else does that involve?
Yeah, so these satellites will be operated out of our NOAA Satellite Operations Facility in Suitland, Maryland. And over the next several months, they'll be, first of all, letting the satellite do outgassing for a period of time, and then calibration and validating and checking out the instruments. And then we'll see first light with the various instruments later this fall.
All right, looking forward to that. And we'll keep chugging along here on our broadcast. In 2021, people living in southeast Louisiana were hit with catastrophic damage from Hurricane Ida. But there was fair warning of what was coming, thanks in part to high advanced resolution imagery from GOES satellites. Here's a closer look.
Hurricane Ida will long be remembered for its destructive, deadly path that stretched from Louisiana to the northeast. For meteorologists at NOAA's National Hurricane Center in Miami, NOAA's GOES-16 satellite provided the advanced high-resolution imagery for closely tracking Ida and developing accurate forecasts from start to finish.
We did see in the GOES imagery the development of that low-level center that allowed us to go ahead and call that a tropical cyclone.
But for Hurricane Ida, it was a case of there being more than meets the eye, literally. Within the eye of Ida, GOES 16's advanced baseline imager saw 4 mesovortices. A mesovortex is a small-scale rotation in the eye wall of a tropical cyclone, and it can be a telltale sign that a storm is getting better organized and intensifying.
Yeah, when we started to notice the mesovortices in the eye, that was during a period of time when we were starting to see some pretty dramatic inner core structural changes.
And with those changes within Ida's eye, scientists saw its wind speeds go up and its central pressure drop. Both of those changes can make a hurricane's winds and storm surge more destructive and deadly. But Ida still had a surprise after it made landfall. The mesovortices in its eye continued to spin around the eye even while it was over southern Louisiana.
It's quite unusual for us to be able to see the mesovortices, say, hours after landfall. And the reason is because after a storm comes ashore, it typically loses its fuel source. It loses its the warm ocean water, and that causes the storm to weaken.
But Ida's mesovortices were still visible over land because of what scientists call the brown ocean effect. Researchers have found that some tropical cyclones can maintain their strength long after landfall, or even strengthen over land, by tapping into the abundant soil moisture below it.
We think that the reason that the storm remained strong in this case was due to the presence of that marshy land. So it was almost like the hurricane didn't know it was over land. It thought it was still over the warm ocean water.
Hurricane Ida will definitely be a storm for the history books, and its full impacts are still being tallied today. For future hurricanes that threaten the U.S. and elsewhere, NOAA satellites will be our eyes in the sky to help forecasters stay on top of these monster storms.
T plus 14 minutes. Everything's good with the spacecraft and rockets so far. Let's check in now with NASA leadership. Philip Hargrove is with NASA's Sandra Connolly.
Yes, thank you, Daryl. I'm here with the Deputy Associate Administrator for NASA's Science Mission Directorate. Thank you so much for being here, Sandra.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I mean, what a day, what a moment. What was the launch experience like?
You know, absolutely.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Go you.
Liftoff of GOES U, NOAA's newest
Vehicle
weather
is pitching
satellite to monitor the Earth and Sun in high definition.
Engines look nominal. Things looking good as you see the Falcon Heavy soaring towards the heavens. All 27 engines powerfully lifting GOES U on its trajectory and ascent into space.
A beautiful shot as we
Power
track
telemetry nominal.
the rocket from the ground here. The rocket is now powering down for max Q. Max Q is the moment of maximum dynamic pressure on the rocket. Max Q expected at 1 minute 7 seconds. The vehicle is now supersonic,
Falcon Heavy is supersonic.
traveling faster than the speed of sound.
Max Q.
There we heard the call for max Q, maximum dynamic pressure on the Falcon Heavy. Vehicle still performs very well. All the data looks nominal.
A great shot from on board the rocket, looking down on the Earth that it is leaving. And all 27 Merlin engines providing 5.1 million pounds of thrust. Coming up at T plus 2 minutes and 28 seconds, the side boosters are going to shut off while the center core will continue on. Wow, what a shot there of, again, all 27 Merlin engines firing off 5.1 million pounds of thrust.
The side booster cutoff will be referred to as BECO. We'll hear that call out. And then when the center core shuts off later in flight, we'll hear that called as main engine cutoff, or MECO. Side boosters are all boosters are performing nominally. Everything's looking good with the 27 Merlin engines.
Side booster separation confirmed.
There we see BECO and side booster.
MVAC chill.
Side booster separation. The MVAC is being chilled down, getting ready for ignition once the center core.
NY boost back startup.
And there we heard the call out for boost back startup.
A lot of things happening here. So again, we have the two boosters that are going to be returning to the Cape here, landing at landing zones 1 and 2. These two boosters have 3 burns, so we're seeing a boost back burn
All
now.
vehicles are following nominal trajectories.
Essentially, these boosters have flipped back and are returning on a path to the Cape here. There will be 2 more burns, a re-entry burn and then a landing burn. And these are going to provide quite a show for folks that are here on the Space Coast, because you're going to hear those sonic booms, Mick.
Yeah, absolutely. We are looking forward to those sonic booms as the side boosters land at landing zone 1 and 2. We're about 26 seconds away from main engine cutoff and the center core separating. Once the center core separates, we will then have MVAC, which is the Merlin vacuum engine for space, start up and get ready for what we call SES-1. Number 1. Today we have 3 burns for this mission to get GOES on its way, and this will be the first of those 3 burns.
PY boost back shutdown.
There we hear the 2 side boosters have boost back shutdown.
And now we're going to watch live footage there. There you go, of MECO. Again, the core
and back ignition
booster separating from the second stage, and the MVAC engine on that second stage lighting up. You see that on the right side of your screen.
We're about 4 seconds from fairing deployment.
Or wind shear aloft, that would be a favorable environment for these storms to take off.
Right, and so when it comes to planning, it's really important that people have a plan. I think it's probably, every year we hear it, start a plan now. Most people, I think, or many people, I should say, probably say, I'll worry about that when I hear it's a storm.
I think, yeah, an active season forecast is a helpful reminder to do this in your plans every year, right? It really just takes one storm to impact your community, and so it could even be a light season. And if you get hit by a hurricane, then it's a big one for you, right? We had one of our hurricane hunter aircraft with us at Kennedy earlier today. So with our satellite imagery from GOES, the hurricane hunter aircraft, we're already at no hurricane season, so we encourage everyone along the coast to do the same.
Alex, you're doing a great job answering my questions and showing off the instruments of GOES, but also throughout the show we've been asking you to submit your questions on #AskNASA from the social media. So let's take a few more questions now. If you're good with that, Alex, let's go ahead and start popping those up. We have Space Gamer on X asks, will there be any more launches for the GOES program after GOES-U, or is this the end of this part of the GOES program?
This is the end of the GOES-R series, so next up will be GeoXO. So our future geostationary weather satellites will be this GeoXO series, with the first one scheduled to launch in 2032.
That's a ways from now, but the technology on GeoXO, how different is it going to be from GOES-U?
Even more high resolution for the current instruments. We'll have another imager, we'll have the lightning mapper. We're also adding new instruments, hyperspectral sounder, an ocean color instrument, an atmospheric composition instrument, and that'll give us more information about our environment and our climate.
All right, another question. Let's go to Avincia, and she asks, why are the satellites renamed? Why are the satellites renamed once they reach orbit?
That's right. So on the ground, we go by the letters. This one is GOES-U. Once it reaches geostationary orbit, it will be renamed GOES-19. It's indicative of the successful mission once it makes it. This is a risky process, and so it gets a new name once it achieves that milestone. And then we have the operational GOES West positions.
All right, very good. Thank you, Alex. Let's send it back now to Philip Hargrove, who was on a packed balcony during launch with a member of NOAA's team. Philip.
Thanks, Daryl. Yes, I'm here joined by the Director of NOAA's Office of Space Weather Observations, Sayed Talat. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm very pleased to be here. Very excited.
Awesome. Yeah. How was the launch? Tell me what your experience was.
It was fantastic. It was picture perfect. It was beautiful. And the sound was just amazing.
It really was. So we've heard a bit about this compact coronagraph. Can you tell us a bit more about that instrument and why it's important for us?
So the compact chronograph, or CCOR-1, is the first operational chronograph that we're ever going to fly in space. And it's an advanced solar telescope that blocks a disk of the sun so that we can measure the outer atmosphere of the sun, the solar corona. And it's very important to measure that because that's where extreme space weather events originate. These large explosions off the sun called coronal mass ejections that can send billions of tons of matter hurtling towards Earth at millions of miles per hour.
So it kind of creates its own solar eclipse. I think that's what you told me earlier.
Yes, basically this telescope will be able to take a solar eclipse and send it down to the forecasters every 30 minutes, within 30 minutes, so sooner than that. And it'll be the continuous operations of having a solar eclipse basically within 30 minutes continuously.
And can you tell me about how this instrument works with the other instruments on board?
So what this instrument does, it allows us what our long-term forecasting of space weather. So 1 to 4 days after we see an explosion off the sun, we measure the characteristics of these explosions and put it into our models that propagate it towards Earth, see if it's going to come towards Earth, and estimate how big the impact is going to be. And we really need to know that because that's important to protecting our technological infrastructures. These solar storms can affect the power grids, civil aviation, and other satellite operations, as well as communications and navigations. And this works in tandem with the other solar instruments on board that measure the solar and EUV, X-ray and EUV irradiance, and image the sun. And then the imagery of the sun gives us context imagery of the sun that is basically like looking at the Atlantic basin for tropical cyclones as they develop, and then they might develop into hurricanes. We look at the sun with the solar ultraviolet imager to see if these regions of activity, which are centered around sunspots, if they're going to develop and produce flares and explosions, those coronal mass ejections. And we measure those effects with the irradiance measurements and the particle instruments that we have on the GO satellites.
Very interesting. And then what's next for NOAA with regards to space weather prediction?
So, very exciting time for space weather because we're developing enhancing our capabilities. We are going to fly next year in 2025 the Space Weather Follow-on L1 mission that is going to be an upstream buoy for measuring the solar wind and incoming solar effects at 1 million miles upstream of Earth towards the sun.
Very exciting stuff. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll toss it back to you, Megan.
Nick and I, again, are back here at the Mission Director Center at Hangar A on the International Space Force Station, and we continue to monitor the teams as they continue the journey to deliver GOES-U to its correct orbit around the Earth.
Yeah, things are going very well. First burn, all the telemetry look very good. Nominal vehicles in the coast phase right now. Our next step coming up, SES-2, that second burn, which we should be hearing here in about 20-25 seconds. Things are progressing well, and GOES-U looks very good.
Again, the milestone bar at the bottom of your screen is where we are in the milestones to getting GOES-U into its correct orbit. SES-2 is that second bird that we're talking about, and we're tracking that for 26 minutes and 19 seconds. So 5 seconds from now. All right, and there we go. We see the MVAC engine on the Falcon Heavy second stage lighting up. This is the second of 3 burns for this engine. This burn is going to last about 1 minute and 27 seconds.
Things are going very well with the launch vehicle as they're on this trajectory that Mark Hammond's talked about, raising that orbit up to where we need to get going for that coast phase to head out to geotransfer. So things are looking very well, and all the telemetry on the stage is performing good. The impact is performing very well, and telemetry looks like we're heading in the right direction. The vehicle's performing well.
The image that you're seeing right there, an animation again of where we are, the trajectory that we have been keeping an eye on, and as you said, that we had an interview about earlier in the broadcast.
solar arrays out, partial solar array deployment to be able to charge those batteries and get going, and then begin their work in the next few weeks to get to geostationary.
All right, so again, a coast phase of just under 4 hours. Nick and I are going to pop in at the top of every hour, so 7 and 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, to give you some quick updates about how everything's going. But for now, let's toss it back to Philip.
Thanks, Megan. Yes, I'm here with the NOAA administrator. So much for being here.
I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, tell me about the occasion. What was your experience like?
So this was obviously an awesome experience to launch the GoSat. It's a simple event that happens over just a 2 minutes to the rest. See it put together so beautifully, so well. It is awesome. So for us at NOAA, we feel that our main responsibility is providing environmental intelligence out so that people can make decisions on economic safety and protection of property. This satellite is a critical component in our understanding what's happening in the Earth. The ability to watch it, see storms, see smoke moving, see all the changes in atoms and currents and oceans, and use that now to provide decision support. All of this is contributing to what we hope will be a climate-ready nation. We can only be climate-ready and be prepared for the impacts of change, devastating if we've got the information up front to make decisions.
You talk about how NOAA can operate NASA to get that information to be told.
We've been working with NASA
And then